It's so great to have you today. I go to this place every day because it's Mike's Daily Podcasting.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
So nice to have you here for episode 2191, the show called
Mike's Daily Podcast.
There's so much going on. It's lighter later. That's nice. I can go for a walk later in the day, and then I go and I talk to the cats that come out and want me to pet them, but I can't own a cat because I will get infected with allergies. So
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Hey, that was my song today. Did you like it? Last show, we discussed a guy
Mike's
that I worked with.
Daily
Really nice.
Podcast.
Learned a lot from him.
Yeah!
And then we lost him much too soon. But you know, there are influences for all of us everywhere in this world, and we don't always realize what a great influence someone is to us until they're gone. And I think you should try and remember them today, because they may be gone tomorrow. Life is fleeting. Yes, you've heard that before. Cliche. But it's true. There are very important people, physical angels in this world that we should respect and thank throughout the day. I was going to tell you what the podcast picture is. I don't know what it is, so I'll get to that in a minute when the Ariel says that. But since it is episode 2191, and I'm recording this sometime during the weekend, I would like to mention a couple of things that were, of course, that we have a new president and that there is a little bit of talk I'm hearing about the ex-presidents. That would be a great thing. But apparently, Trump might start a MAGA party. Is that what I heard a little earlier? I saw something really quickly about that, and then it disappeared. But Trump doesn't want to be a member of the ex-presidents club because...
And here's today's podcast picture.
It says here, he kind of laughed at the very notion that he would be accepted in the President's Club, said Kate Anderson Brower, who interviewed Trump in 2019 for her book, Team of Five, The President's Club in the Age of Trump. He was like, I don't think I'll be accepted. Former President Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Clinton recorded a 3-minute video from Arlington National Cemetery after President Joe Biden's inauguration last week, praising peaceful presidential succession as a core of American democracy. The segment included no mention of Trump by name, but stood as a stark rebuke of his behavior since losing November's election. I'm noticing as I'm reading this, I'm doing a Trump hand karate chop. Yes, Basil. Oh, Basil used to like to attack my hands. As I would play with him, he'd grab my hands with his mouth, and it would kind of hurt. It wasn't a full-on bite. It was a playful bite. Dogs sometimes do this. A couple times, though, he'd get me pretty good. So remember the karate chop Trump used to do when he talked? Did that kind of thing? Speaking of which, so... he probably did that karate chop when he gave that big speech that riled up the crowds invading the Capitol. And now they're saying federal law enforcement officials are privately debating whether they should decline to charge some of the individuals who stormed the U.S. Capitol. That is because it's practical concerns that hundreds of such cases could swamp the local courthouse. The internal discussions are in their early stages and no decisions have been reached about whether to forego charging some of those who illegally entered the Capitol. Justice Department officials have promised a relentless effort to identify and arrest those who stormed the Capitol that day. But internally, there is a robust back and forth about whether charging them all is the best course of action. That debate comes at a time when officials are keenly sensitive that the credibility of the Justice Department and the FBI are at stake in such decisions, given the apparent security and intelligence failures that preceded the riot. These people said federal officials estimate that roughly 800 people surged into the Capitol though they caution that such numbers are imprecise and the real figure could be 100 people or more in either direction. Among those roughly 800 people, FBI agents and prosecutors have so far seen a broad mix of behavior, from people dressed for military battle, moving information society. I want to know what you're thinking. Tell me what's on your mind. To wanton vandalism, to simply going with the crowd into the building. That's a question that I have, is how many people were there that were lemmings, just moving along with the crowd. That's why I hate any kind of demonstration, any kind of mob. Because you don't know. I mean, it's mobs. Okay, I'm just now remembering there's a verse in the Bible about something about beware of mobs. Beware of following the crowd. It's interesting why I just thought of that. But yes, crowds, you have to think for yourself. First and foremost, you have a brain. Whether you believe God stuck that brain in your head or whatever you believe, the fact is you do have a brain in your head, and you should be able to use it and not be swayed by a large mass of people doing something stupid. That's all I'm saying. So, okay. They don't know if they're going to arrest everybody that ran into the Capitol. We don't know if Trump is going to start a new political party, but he definitely doesn't want to be part of the ex-president's club. And that's it. Oh, thousands of guard troops are going to remain in D.C. through mid-March. Interesting. I hope they're not all sleeping on the floor like that. One picture I saw of them all sleeping on the marble floor of the Capitol because they didn't have enough beds for them. What's that about? And this story from MSN.com looks like that's Al Sharpton hosting this segment. Oh, it's his memo to Trump segment. But Trump apparently, this is from the Washington Post, made over 30,000 false or misleading claims as president. 30,573 false or misleading claims as president. Nearly half came in his final year. Wow. Half of them in the final year. He had a quota to fill, I guess. Over time, Trump unleashed his falsehoods with increasing frequency and ferocity, often by the scores in a single campaign speech or tweet storm. What began as a relative trickle of misrepresentations, including 10 on his first day and 5 on the second, built into a torrent through Trump's final days as he frenetically spread wild theories that the coronavirus pandemic would disappear, quote, like a miracle, and that the presidential election had been stolen, the claim that inspired Trump supporters to attack the Capitol, to attack Congress, and prompted his second impeachment. As we go outside a cafe anyway, we're bringing Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley 10 today. By the way, there is a Wikipedia page for the attempts to overturn the 2020 United States presidential election, in which Joe Biden prevailed, it says. Incumbent Donald Trump, as well as his presidential campaign and his proxies, pursued an aggressive, unprecedented effort to deny and overturn the results. The attempts to overturn the election have been described by some as an ill-attempted coup d'etat. That's on Wikipedia now. That's now a part of history. Whether you believe in Wikipedia or not, if it's all falsehoods, even if you believe that, you at some point did look up on Wikipedia something and use that as your informational base. Don't deny it. Don't deny it. We've all done it. And a lot of it is true. It gets footnoted. They try. And as I say this, I should say we should all donate to Wikipedia because it is publicly funded. But Trump, which isn't that what the United States government is? Publicly funded with our tax dollars? So what Trump and his allies have repeatedly falsely claimed that the election was stolen from Trump through an intentional communist conspiracy. Oh, an international communist conspiracy. They claimed The election was stolen with rigged voting machines and electoral fraud. I will never, ever, ever forget the hysteria that happened at the end of this year and at the beginning of the year. Don't forget, it has just magically disappeared as of Wednesday. Wednesday, there was the nail in the coffin. It ended. I mean, some of you are like, yeah, okay, no, it'll continue on, and I'll never stop talking about it. But no, I felt it on Wednesday. It really, and especially because, as you know, I listen to a lot of conservative talk radio, and I heard it just immediately, whether they wanted to or not, they immediately focused their bile at Biden. The Biden bile. It's now focused on him. That's their talking point now is Biden, and Schumer is now head of the Senate Majority Leader. He is that. When I first heard that, I was like, really? And I'm so used to Mitch McConnell. Wow. And Mitch is now the minority leader, which now the impeachment begins or shall begin soon. But yeah. So that's where all the focus is now. It's not, the election's done. It's finally done. But they were just, in fact, there is this one talk show host that's made a name for himself because he wrote a book about Trump. He's very pro-Trump. He's young. He's a fairly good-looking guy because he's young and he's still got all his hair. And he, a lot of women like that. Although some of you women like bald guys. And for you, I applaud you. Because balds have more fun. No. But this guy, and he has been over it every single day since the election saying a fraud, and pulling this conspiracy out and that conspiracy out. He finally changed his tune. I was listening to him on Wednesday evening, I think it was. He said, now we have to become like what happened when Obama got into office and he became president, and he said, meaning the Republicans, we have to begin a Tea Party, because that became the big movement after Obama became president in 2009 rather, the Tea Party, which later brought us Ted Cruz and all the rest. So he said, we got to do this now. And it was the pivot that I've been talking about forever, that it could be we. Maybe you're a Republican. Maybe I'm a Republican. Maybe I'm a Democrat. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you. But maybe no. But yeah, what would the Republicans want to do but pivot and start thinking about the future instead of dealing in something that seems to have ended in a massive calamity of what happened that now has even a Wikipedia page? The fraud allegations were rejected as totally meritless by numerous state and federal judges, state and local election officials, governors, the Justice and Homeland Security departments, and the Electoral College, besides numerous independent commentators. Most congressional Republicans refused to acknowledge Biden's victory until mid-December, after the Republican efforts to overturn the election results failed, and after the Electoral College vote had taken place, formalizing Biden's victory. I remember one conservative talk show host who's also a lawyer, has been a lawyer for Trump. I remember him during all the clamor going on in November. He was like, it's in Georgia, they had these thumb drives. You ever seen a thumb drive? I remember him saying, it's just going crazy about thumb drives. And I thought, yeah, I know a lot about thumb drives, because when your company gets hacked and you've got no way to access the internet, you use thumb drives a lot, my friend. I have now about 5 thumb drives that I keep at the ready. They're very helpful. But yeah, he was blaming Biden's win on thumb drives. Thumb drives brought down Trump. Emily Murphy, the administrator of the General Services Administration, delayed initialing the presidential transition key elements of which could only begin once she had ascertained Biden to be the president-elect. Murphy allowed the transition to proceed on November 23rd, the day after my birthday, 20 days after the election, and 16 days after most media outlets projected Biden to be the winner. I know a company that's very pro-Trump. It's a media company, and they refused to say that Biden was president-elect. They said, we will only do it once the Electoral College had formalized Biden's victory. So Trump and allies filed more than 60 lawsuits after Election Day and lost all but one. The brief victory concerned the timing within which first-time voters in Pennsylvania must provide proper identification, but the ruling was later overturned by the state Supreme Court. Never forget this. Remember that Wikipedia page. Whether you believe in Wikipedia or not, it has every bit of what happened along the way. And we should never forget this, because this was a terrible... We were a dysfunctional... We probably still are a dysfunctional country, but... I mean, wow. And all that talk, and I heard conservative talk show hosts say to Biden, please, 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 when you do your inauguration speech, please talk about keeping the peace. Let's calm down the rhetoric. Let's chill out. Say something like that, Biden, and he did. So now the conservative talk show host will criticize Biden at every turn about everything, every little thing, every single little thing. And that will be hilarious. Every time you hear a conservative talk show host criticize Biden, take that same criticism and flip it around to be if it was about Trump, and see if there was any time the equivalent could be attributed to Trump, and see if there is any sort of false equivalency going on, because there will be lots and lots. Okay, enough about that. That was all the fun that happened this past week. Then did you hear that Bharat Biotech says people with allergies shouldn't get the Covaxin jab? They issued a fact sheet, this was on Tuesday, stating that certain groups of people are advised not to take Covaxin, the COVID-19 vaccine manufactured by the pharmaceutical company. These groups include people with allergies, people who are immunocompromised and are pregnant or are breastfeeding, among others. The fact sheet allows concerns from public health experts, including doctors, about the efficacy of the vaccine, with Phase 3 trials for Covaxin still underway. And I understand that as a fear. I know a lot of people that are like, hey, I get all kinds of allergies. I'm so susceptible to allergies. If I take the vaccine and I have some kind of allergic reaction and I die, that won't be nice. I don't know if I'm quoting them exactly, but that's sort of the thought process there, which I understand. Finally, Thailand sold itself as a paradise COVID-19 retreat, and no one came. More than 3 months after hotels reopened to extended stay travelers in an attempt to revive Thailand's battered economy, foreign arrivals have failed to meet even rock bottom expectations. So apparently, what's this Kanchanaburi has been ordered to immediately close hotels, resorts, and similar establishments from January 14th on. The order exempts long-term rental residents and establishments that have long-term leases. So there you go. Thailand and everything else on Mike's Daily Podcast today. Hey, we're outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley. Who's here? Hello, Mike Matthews. It's Chely Shoehart, good chef supervisor. I've never been to Thailand. Neither have I, because I didn't know what that word was that I said, the Kanchanaburi thing. I once had a can of berries. It wasn't that good, Mike Matthews. No, I don't think you should. Unless you're making a jam, you can can berries. Or I would think jar. You would jar the berries? I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. I don't know either. Look who else is here. Hello, Mike. This is Floyd the Floorman. And this is John Deere, the engineer. Mike, you haven't married. You haven't married. I have gotten married. I mean, years ago. Then I got divorced. Similar to Adele is getting divorced very soon. Or she just did, I think. Hello. How are you? I'm fine. Thanks for asking. Mike! What is that? Have you noticed it's lighter later? It is lighter later. Thank you for mentioning that on Mike's Daily Podcast. Also, I'd like to mention Larry King. He passed away at the age of 87. I heard due to COVID-19. What an interesting guy. I only bring him up because he did some amazing interviews with a lot of actors, young actors and comedians whom I enjoy, from shows like Community, New Girl, and he's talked to, Zooey Deschanel, who was on Community? I can't think of any other names. A lot of them. These were great interviews. He had such a good way of just throwing these questions out, and then these young people would be talking to him and then feeling like they were talking to their grandfather, and they'd get all teared up. And there's just some... Check it out. Larry King, I think he did these... What was that channel he was on recently? Was it Bravo? One of those cable networks. He was doing something, and anyway, Cafe Anyway, great interviewer, and we need more interviewers like that. He was really good at it, and he was a legend. Okay, that's pretty much the end of the show. What a way to end it, huh? This show is very like a roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster, talking about people that are your heroes, that are your inspirations, talking about mass calamity and mass hysteria, and then ending with a legend. That's pretty much the way life is, isn't it? Maybe not. Next show, it'll be the wonderful Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster. And check out the radio show that I'll be doing. There's a link to it at MikesDailyPodcast.com. It's tomorrow morning from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. You'll be able to hear it Pacific time. Details at MikesDailyPodcast.com. And if you'd like to chime in on anything that we covered, you can call me 336-MM Daily. 3 plus 3 equals 6. MM as in Mike Matthews. Daily as in what this podcast is. Oh! And the last thing that I almost forgot to mention was that I got banned by YouTube. Well, kind of. The show I did called Auto, I think I did it on Thursday, that got banned. It got age restricted, and I have no idea why. I had a guest, I had Ken Luttrell on, and I had Nate on, and for some reason, it got age restricted. We didn't say any bad words or anything. I don't know why. I sound like Glenn Beck here, but YouTube has some strange restrictions. YouTube has they're being a little overly zealous and trying to keep the riffraff off, but somehow I became riffraff. But you might be able to find me on YouTube, maybe not, but definitely find me at MikesDailyPodcast.com. Take it away, Frank.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MikesDailyPodcast.com. Email Mike now at MikesDailyPodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye.
The podcast picture I forgot to mention was from the beautiful area known as Mavericks Beach. If you have not been there, you need to go. It's in Half Moon Bay, just, I guess you would say, Half Moon Bay, the town. You want to go north of it a ways, and there's that harbor called Pilar Point Harbor. And then it's right there. You got to park near Pilar Point Harbor and then walk west to the ocean, and bam, you're at Mavericks. So you can't walk anymore. Although some people were walking on these rocks, looked pretty dangerous, like they could fall right in and disappear forever. So be careful there. But see the picture at MikesDailyPodcast.com.